evening, Source Nation. You're listening live to Family Mix Mondays, and I'm your host, Jaketra Bryant. And we are continuing our series about new age technology and parenting. And so we just want to keep this conversation going because, as we know, technology is moving. We are on Apple to laptops to smart TVs to smartphones to all those things. And I want to really talk about what that is doing to communication, particularly within our Black families, particularly for our Black men, particularly just for just our people of color. Like, is technology doing something is technology changing the way we communicate? Is it changing in a negative light? We're going to kind of discuss that and keep that going. And so, Source Nation, if you are interested in any type of advertisement, please do reach out to TreacyJeffco@gmail.com or Kathleen1971@gmail.com. If you're interested in advertising with us on SRN Television, we'll be glad to follow up and move from there. Also, we want to stop and thank our sponsors, Paper to Film Production, Renovations, New Covenant Praise Worship Center, Zulina Health and Wellness and Fitness, and Meet My Types Matchmaking. And so thank you so much for your sponsorship. And again, we are on our series of new age technology and communication. Particularly tonight, we're going to discuss within the Black community. And so I have guests, Corey Porter. So I'm going to read just a little bit about you and then bring him on, and he's going to discuss so much more in detail about who he is and the things he has going on. And so Corey has spent most of his life seeking the truth as early as elementary school. Corey found his calling in the pages of encyclopedia. It was there when he discovered the pyramids of Egypt and aligned himself with his divine order to seek the truth, be the truth, and teach the truth. Not how it has been given, but the truth as it has been lived. As a young Black student, he experienced and watched as discrimination developed beyond segregation and into minds, habits, and behaviors of Black people. He was faced with many obstacles, but the fire inside of him continued to burn for knowledge and wisdom that could exonerate and free those who look like him. And so Corey now has served students and families and communities of EBD educator, mentor, behavioral specialist, researcher, and historian. And he's considered a national expert on learning disabilities and their effects on the Black children. And so I can go on and on and on, but I'm going to let Corey tell you more about him. So Corey, just tell Source Nation just more about like you and what's new with you. It's been so long since I spoke with you.
Oh, well, hello, good evening. I'd like to thank you for being on the show again. But as far as me, I've been pretty much doing the same work. I'm working with the juvenile justice system now, and I'm working with children that are facing anywhere from 2 to life in prison. So we're going in right now trying to get them some character education in, some mindfulness training, some trigger identification, conflict resolution, things of that nature, as well as still implement the Common Core curriculum that they have to go by state mandate. But so the work is still strenuous, but it still goes on. Love of labor.
Yes, thank you so much for your service. I know, like, you were such a hit, like, when I first even started doing, like, radio and TV. And so I definitely knew you would be perfect to talk about, like, kind of what's happening with technology, what's happening with communication, particularly within our Black families. And I know you see so many areas of our Black, like, families. And so, like, tell me, when it comes to technology, what's your opinion on like what you think is doing to our Black community?
Well, in particular, we have to understand technology and social media. Now, technology is a good thing. Like social media could be a good or a bad thing. It's how we use these things. The cell phone in itself has had great advantages as well as disadvantages. Now, as far as social media is concerned, we're allowing our children to use these things as a form of communication that trumps face-to-face communication. It trumps, you don't have to be who you really are. You can sit behind whatever screen you want to. So people are living, not just children, but adults as well are starting to create these fake, not just pages, but fake identities, so to speak, and they're trying to live these things out. I was sitting in a restaurant yesterday with my children, and I was watching a whole family. The whole family was sitting there with their cell phones in their pockets, well, in front of them. And my youngest son looked up to me and said, "Dad, that family doesn't even talk to each other." And I said, "Well, they probably are talking to each other." And my oldest son said, "Well, they're probably texting each other." So So,
Right.
so we're starting to see the breakdown of communication within the family, the personal communication that's so needed um, for the mental and emotional growth that we need in families, especially our families. I'm saying as far as what we're facing now.
Yeah. That, like you said something pretty profound about like just the whole face-to-face stopping. Just like, well, there's a reduction in face-to-face. And so like talk about what is that like, how do you think that affects like this limited face-to-face interaction and the more texting and being on computers or even the smart like objects? Like, do you think that has an impact on like us communicating like things that
Absolutely.
we're going through, like to each other?
Well, absolutely. We're making people, you don't have to have emotions when you don't have the face to face. The social skills are starting to plummet. The accountability that takes place looking someone in their eye when you're talking with them. All these things are starting to go by the wayside because so much of our communication is done through technology via social media, such as Facebook, Instagram, and the plethora of other things that I don't even know about. Now, as far as it being a benefit, yes, it could be a benefit, especially with this day and time where you can reach out and touch someone in case of an emergency and things of that nature. But again, we're allowing technology and the people that have an agenda behind creating this technology to drive us and our families. And that is a very, very bad thing because, again, we have to get to social engineering, social responsibility, social agendas being pushed down our children's throat because we have to monitor these things. And there's no way that you can monitor what your children are looking at on the World Wide Web, on the internet. So, again, we have to step our game up and make ourselves parenting a little more accountable as far as what we allow our children to use. And it's your fault if you don't speak to your children in the morning because the first thing you grab is your phone. So again, we still have to maintain control of our households and raise our children the best way we see fit. That's going to be productive for our people as we go forward.
Yeah, I agree. As a parent of a 10-year-old, like my son is like growing and he just keeps on saying, "Mom, I want a cell phone, I want a cell phone." And so I'm just like, no, there's so much more that comes to it. Like I'm so big on like you said, like the face-to-face interaction. I'm so big on having a hello and a good morning and let's have a conversation versus like what this cell phone world or this new age technology has really done to, like you said, the basics of sitting down and having a conversation, just checking in with somebody. And so I think
Well,
that's
it's
that
a
to
sign of
me is
the time.
negative.
Well, it's a sign of the times because at one point we didn't even have a telephone.
No, right.
Okay, so I imagine that there was some people, some segment of the population saying, "Oh, this telephone thing is going to ruin families or how we talk with one another." And I would imagine it did to a certain degree. But again, we have to balance these things out with how we continue to keep our humanism in a way, if that's the word, because now we're turning into the device is starting to control us. Why do you think they call it a smart device? Because it's
Right.
learning us. We're not learning it; it's learning us. So
Mm.
right now, again, say when you get on these social media sites and use all this technology, you're also opening yourself up to be hacked by other people. Young children are being asked to do some illegal
Yep.
things. They're
So
being,
true.
yeah, all these type of things. All these type of things. Children are buying weapons. Adults are doing all type of things on this thing we call the the
The
World Wide
smart
Web.
home. Right. Right.
Right.
Right. Even down
So
to like the
technology.
marijuana sales. Like there's so many dark rooms that are present with the marijuana sales and things like that that young children can get access to.
Oh, right. Even down to porn, even down to some of the
Hmm.
video games that they're able to, some of the music that they're able to download. And what's happening is we're allowing technology to be able to bombard our children with information coming from all over the place, whether that
Right.
information is correct. So our children are coming to us already well indoctrinated with certain things that are going on in the world. So our parenting has to match this 21st century child, this
Yep.
new 2018 child. So if we're still trying to raise our children off the same premise or the same way that our parents raised us, the values should stay the same, but our techniques should change to reflect the society in which we live in. So again, we're allowing technology to come in and take over. Now, as far as education is concerned, at some point, I'm predicting it's going to replace the teacher, because you got to understand, teachers, you're going to have robots or some hologram type device to where it's going to present this information to children without the attitude, without the personal problems, without sick leave, without maternity leave. They're going to be able to just give you straight information, and you just move on from there. We're starting to see it with certain fast food restaurants, to where basically you can order your own food. They cook it in the back on the computer or with the robots or whatever, and they send it out. You see it in the cashier, in the grocery store, self-checkout. They're even making cars that drive and park itself now.
Wow.
So we're going. So we're getting to a very, very risky area in our lives and in this dispensation of time, to where we're going to start to lose certain abilities as human beings because we're going to rely on technology so much. Like right now, I can't remember 5 phone numbers simply because
it's in our
all in my
phone.
cell.
Right. Guilty too. I only got the basic people who I grew up with. I don't remember theirs. But that's so true. Oh my goodness, Corey, that's just so that's so profound. Like I was just thinking of like literally what popped in my head was like George Jetson time. And I thought that cartoon was cute, but I don't know if I'm ready to move there and just really have what everything is like this like non-interpersonal reaction happening where literally like buttons.
You're right. You're absolutely correct. Now look at how we do jobs now. Now, back in the day, you used to be able to go. When I say back in the day, I'm talking about maybe 10 years ago, 12 years ago. You put in a job application or a resume, they call you in, and you give them a handshake, and they look at you. Now everything is online.
Right.
So right now, again, those personal skills that certain people should use to further themselves and to just being a good example of a human being, we don't have to display these things. So everybody looks good on paper. But if we would have had that face-to-face, you would have known this person has very, very awful personal skills, social skills with people. So we're getting a lot of education right now for college. You can go online. You don't even have to go sit and do all this stuff anymore. So, but now even like with the library, they don't even call them libraries anymore, they're media centers.
Right. So you're absolutely right. Right. That's right.
So right now, you go into a high school or a middle school media center, library, quote unquote, you won't see any books. You will see a lot of Mac cards, a lot of terminals set up to where children can just interact with millions and millions of resources.
Yep.
But the education, the quality of education is not matching the technology. So the children are educating themselves, but schooling is still hindering what they can actually do. So in my class, when I was in the classroom, I would ask students, do you have a cell phone? They would absolutely say yes. So I would say, okay, you can use it in this class, but only to look up information pertaining to this class and the research that we're doing. So again, that's not being a stick in the mud and allowing these children, actually giving them an example of how to search things the proper way. So it's either get in or get left behind, pretty much.
And which is so sad because like as a clinician and as a person like you, like that literally is inside of the behavioral side of things, and we're looking at the psychological ends, and we're seeing the cycle of what is hindering us. I think that's sad because it's like here are these people who are like making all these new technology advances. They're not tapping in or in tune enough with a person who works one-on-one with people. Everything is about like, here's a easier access to do something versus like, what is it actually doing to us as humans when it comes to our placement on earth, the interactions and relationships and stuff like that. Like that's the sad part about it. Like, it's just like that is getting dismissed.
Well, again, you have to ask yourself, is it the technology or is it the people using the technology? I asked some students today, is a gun bad or good? And it's a bad thing. Someone said it's a good thing. And I said, well, okay, if somebody set a fully loaded gun on the table, will that gun be able to jump up and shoot someone without a human unit? No. So I said it's the person behind it with their intent. Now I can get on the computer and use it for research about ancient Africa or things of that nature, educational topics. But someone else right beside me at the Starbucks could be using that Wi-Fi to look up child porn or how to
Right.
buy weapons or how to do a plethora of things. So again, we have to look at not the social media or the technology. We have to look at the people and how it's influencing people of power to push certain things on us. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
If you know a pedophile is in your neighborhood or whatever, the technology has also made it available to where we can look on our
Right. We can see
computer
those
and
things.
see how
Yeah.
many child offenders are
Yeah.
around us.
Good
You
point.
understand? It's also done things like when I'm at work and I want to check on, see if someone's in my house or anything like that, I can look on my phone and look at the camera and see what's going on. So again, there are some benefits to this thing
Yeah.
we call technology.
Agree. Yeah, I definitely agree. It definitely has a lot of like perks to it when it comes to like access, including weather, because I don't like watch the news because the news has like
Right.
bad news after bad news. But what I can see is on my phone where it tells me like the weather for the next few hours while I'm at work. And so it does have like its advances. I was wondering, like you said
Right.
something like earlier about like the person kind of hiding behind the screen with identity. And I do think like that to me is a really big issue. And I think those issues play into the other issues you named about like being able to have access to porn or being able to like hack into something or the person itself. And I think that plays a difference as to if a person kind of lacks meaning for themselves or lacks their own kind of self-worth or self-identity, we're going to see those things being easily drawn to the person in the technology world. Like, would you agree, or what have you seen when it comes to the emotional like side of emotional behavior side of things in your studies?
Oh, I think you were right on. It's easy to, but they have a word for it calling catfishing people now. To where you can be someone completely different than who you are. Okay, and people use it to get money and scams and do all things. But again, that shows the denigration of the human psyche. I'm so looking at social media and looking at what television has done, because you got to understand television was a big deal too when it came out, because it introduced a lot of images to people that society wasn't ready for people to see.
Mm-hmm.
So again, those people that use social media to fraud the public, that's not a technology issue. That is a psychological issue with the person that has means to access technology. You see what I'm saying? But we're seeing children all the time. They're looking at this stuff. They want to become gang members. They want to become hustlers and rappers. And the only reason a lot of people want to be rappers and athletes right now, because those are the things that they have access to on a regular basis being shoved
Right.
down their throat.
Right.
So
Right.
that's why every young child, you ask them what they want to be when they grow up, they say something with music, something
Mm-hmm.
with an athlete. Okay, because that's all they're being shown, and what they're being shown, I talked about an agenda, is so strong that we're allowing it to come into our families, and it's pulling our children away into an abyss of things that we're not prepared to go get them out of.
Right.
Okay,
That's so good. So good. I agree.
so they have these names for drugs and different sexual acts and different societies and different messages. And if you're not abreast on what's going on, you can literally watch your child transform into basically a zombie,
Mm-hmm.
being programmed moment after moment after moment after moment after moment. They're listening to it. They see it. Everyone around them is trying to emulate this.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, so it's very, 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 very dangerous. And we're on the losing end of this. And that's
Yeah.
the sad part of it. We're on the losing end of it.
I think it's gonna
I
take.
personally
Yeah.
have,
Yeah. I'm sorry. Go ahead. What'd you say?
I personally have an 11-year-old, and I
Yeah.
have a phone. He has a phone. Now, the only reason he has a phone is because when he's at school, he made me think, Dad, what if something happened and somebody break in and shoot up the school, and I want to get in contact with you? And I said, you're absolutely right, because I'm going to come and get you. Okay. and I need to be able to have contact with you and all this thing. So, but it's a scary thing right now that you have to prepare your children with things like safety for a cell phone. You
Right.
need to have a cell phone. So I need to be in contact with you. So
Yeah.
it's a very fine line, that we're teetering on.
Yeah, I remember I had a cell phone like when I actually, let me take that back. I did not have a cell phone whenever I was able to go out on like dates or go to like I mean, not too many dates, but go out with like friends and stuff. Then my mom would give
Right.
her Nokia to call her, like if anything was to happen or a car or emergency or something like that, that I was able to see her phone. And but
Right.
I had to return it back when I got back home. And so I couldn't keep it. And then I had a pager. And so that's
Well,
kind of
yeah.
that was my extent of my mobile devices coming with me,
But
but they came with
think
restrictions.
about this. But think about this. Even the pager, after so long, became attached to a negative connotation.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
You
yeah.
were able, because if I had a pager, and I did, two things you would hear all the time: you ain't no doctor, and you better not be selling
A
drugs.
drug dealer. Yep.
Right, right. So, and again, that was something that technology introduced into the game. Okay, wow, this is a new pace of technology. I can do some illegal stuff with this thing. There's always going to be that segment of society that uses something for
Yeah.
other purposes what it was created for. That's just
Yeah.
the human, so.
Yeah. Which kind of goes back to kind of what you were saying about the education and necessity of educating, the necessity of making sure the person behind the technology, one, there's a maturity level. And I think that is a role that parents have to do at being better judges on. Like, what are the circumstances that I'm giving this smart device to? Am I giving it, like you said, for safety, for easy access to my child in case of emergencies? It's sad, but there are shootings in school. That is a reality-based statement, unfortunately, that did
Right.
not happen 25 years ago. And if it did, it was one every 15 years, not one every month. And so, like, that's a legit reason.
Yeah. And it's changing the social dynamic. So again, the children have the know-how to even plan something like this because of what? Technology.
Yeah.
So again, I'd rather put something in his. But again, if my son gets caught with a cell phone in his hand, he could get shot for it.
Yeah,
You
I
see,
know.
again,
Yeah.
it's very, very, very dangerous world that we're living in right now. But we have
Yeah.
to adapt. I know this is a cliche. We have to adapt. We have to overcome. We have to meet our children with the same type of force that society is meeting them with, and we have to to be quite honest, we use technology to push that because of technology we're able to do what we're doing right now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah,
We're,
agree.
so technology is a beautiful thing, but it's also a horrible thing depending on, like, again, the hands that it
Yeah.
finds itself in.
You said something about like the cell phones and a blackmail. I want to really talk about that because I think like that's a necessary conversation to me parents need to have with their children of color, particularly like if you're a black male. And so unfortunately, definitely unfortunately, so with technology advancing, with how cell phones do have its benefits, sometimes access and having Apple computers or computers have a benefit. What do you think are some types of conversations that parents need to have if they have like black, like like males, or if they have like children of color with what's happening, like you said, with the cell phone, pulling the cell phone out and it being mistaken for something else, but parents really being like you, my child needs to have this for this. So like, what do you think about like what could be some conversations parents can start having with their children in advance for safety purposes with technology?
Well, one I just had in particular with my son that was very close to my son because I'm working in a situation where children are incarcerated. But one thing that, and point this one out, a little girl sent a boy a picture of herself nude.
Mm-hmm.
She's 14, he's 16.
Mm-hmm.
So the little boy sent it to someone else. Once the mother found out, she made a big deal about it. So they went and arrested the boy for child pornography charges.
Oh, wow.
Okay,
That's exactly, if
so
you don't know what that is, that's exactly
that,
what can happen.
that's exactly what could happen. So again, I'm having conversations with my son about things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Be careful, and I'm also teaching them about social responsibility along with social media. Um, Things that you look up just because you delete it off your device does not mean that it's gone, because you leave something called a digital footprint. So we
Yep.
had to teach them social responsibility and social awareness, you know. And as far as on the parent end, again, technology is a beautiful thing. If you use it properly, I can see everything that my children use their phone for on my phone. Like if
Oh,
I
that's a
want
good
to see what
idea.
type, you know, I can look and see what sites that they're going to and things of that nature. But again, that costs another charge. But again, if you want to make sure that your children are on the up and up,
Yeah.
and if you're going to give them these devices, you're going to have to be able to monitor these devices. Okay, that's what I tell parents. Now, just because my son has a cell phone, they check it in. This is another thing that I do. At 7 o'clock, 7:30, you check your phone in.
Mm-hmm.
I check my phone in. Okay, so when we come through the door, first thing we do is put our phones on the table. Okay, we enjoy being at home. We all made it back together again. Okay, after we finish doing our little nightly routine, I have a 16-year-old. Of course, you got things you want to do on your phone, friends you want to talk to, videos you want to watch. So you get an hour to do that. Okay, so I monitor the amount of time that they're able to do certain things because I keep them activated with other things. Now, one more point before I let you speak. Parents need to stop using technology as a babysitter.
Mm.
Okay, go to your room. Here, you know, go ahead and watch this Netflix on this phone or watch these cartoons on this phone so you can just leave me alone. So now you're starting to see children that can't even talk, can't write, can't read, but they can navigate a cell phone with their little 2-year-old finger with perfection.
Yep. I like the fact
So
about like they have to check it in, because that's in essence what I was doing when I was coming inside the house from being with friends, or if I did have like a date at 17 or 18 or whatever, I was handing the
right,
phone back. So there was no late night texting. There was no, I could not go in the bathroom with my phone. I mean, granted, they didn't have cameras on them, but but even they did,
right,
I could not be in the bathroom with my phone without somebody taking notes that was odd. And so,
right,
or a closed door. And I think that's a really good boundary and very good observation to be like here is within limits of, here you can move with technology, you can read about things that are here, you can text your friends, you can have Facebook and stuff like that, but within these limits. And I think it allows you to constantly have conversation as a parent with things moving or exposure to certain things, and you being the first educator. So I like that.
right. Now think about it. We had cable that we you know what I'm saying, when cable came out. Yeah, my parents bought cable, but that didn't mean my brothers and I could sit there and watch whatever channel we wanted to watch. They monitored, you can get to watch this channel between this time and this time. It wasn't no sitting around watching HBO and Showtime and all this stuff at 11, 12, 13 years old. Again, you have to parent, and it takes work. Yeah,
Yep.
a little more work than we anticipated in this day and age. But again, we're well prepared to be able to deal with it.
Yeah. I like I once had well, not once. I have a client, and in this conversation with this client, she was discussing that at age 7, she got a hold of like she got a hold of some porn at like at 7. And then she was telling me that she began continuing to watch like porn all the way up until like recently. And so like
Right,
I mean, think that was like something that was like a major exposure. I'm like, at 7, that's a pretty early age to begin watching porn, and then it became something that she constantly still now we're having to kind of undo and have a healthier view on sex. And this was at 7, where I was like, where were your parents? She was like, well, they just kind of thought that I was just watching like the regular cartoons, and they never came in the room to just kind of check in on me to see what I really was watching. And she said it just became something I needed to watch it every day. So a 7-year-old addicted to porn, where they thought she was watching cartoons.
That's crazy. But, check this out. Check this out. I grew up in a very, very, very monitored, strict household. But I remember my first time seeing a fully naked woman was in a Playboy magazine, okay? And I was probably about 8, 9 years old. And it was his big brother's book while we in the room playing whatever we were playing with. He said, look at this, look at this. Fast forward to about 10, 11 years old, same dude, he showed us the VHS tape of a porn. Now, this was technology. My parents couldn't control that. But again, they had a way of debriefing us. My father called it a debriefing. Whenever we were out of his presence all day, he demanded basically that we talk to him about certain things, and based off our responses, he would understand if we had been exposed to something that he hadn't exposed us to. Now, I didn't realize how I thought that was being kind of weird back then as a child, but that was just a father hovering over his cubs, making sure that nobody put nothing in his children that could take root and grow up in them and derail them and mess them up as an adult, like you talk about the little girl being exposed to porn at 7 years old.
Yep. Yeah. So, I think that's just oh, what were we saying?
I said, no, it's back to that parenting piece.
Yeah. I think just kind of with just all of this discussion, the importance really is like having open discussions, not letting technology babysit your kids. Like the things that we can't control, like the advancement and the more things being added to technology, we can't control that. But what we can control is, like you said, constant conversation, putting limits on, and beating your children to types of conversation that the exposure can lead to a negative journey, like addiction and pornography, or lacking interpersonal communication skills. There's nothing more unattractive than trying to like date or get married or something, and your spouse can't talk to you and you can't solve any issues, and realizing that the connection came from being in cyber world too much.
Right.
So
well, it is made even the mating process, dating process, because if you look on social media now, and I'm laughing because a lot of women, and I'm not even talking about the younger women, I'm talking about 30-plus-year-old women, still find it that they need to be dressed scantily clad or expose themselves or insinuating certain body parts to get attraction. And on the other side of that, you have men, 30 plus, that are still doing things like flashing cars, money, and things of that nature. Again, we're trying to show something that's not necessarily the truth to get a different look.
Yeah.
So it's not just the children, it's the adults that are affecting the children, because there are more adults watching more star hip hop than children. Okay, because no child is paying for these internet services or these phones, and as far as the majority. So all these different sites, those aren't children with all these porn sites. You know what I'm saying? These are adults driving this type of technology and industry out here. Children just so happen to be a collateral damage.
So sad.
And that's what children are, collateral damage.
Yeah, so sad.
People never market things to children directly, because people understand children don't have money. So you have to market something that the adults that are tending to their children will spend their money on. Okay. Yep. So no one markets to children. They market to the adults to be able to go appease their children.
Yeah, so sad, so sad, man. Like, Corey, we have to make sure we do a part 2, because this has been so good, but then we're like running out of time with it. So I do want to just kind of get your last minute like words of advice out to parents about technology. And we'll definitely have to do a part 2 and really like piggyback on like your last statement, because like, man, I got like so many things running through my head, like, ooh, what's this? So like, what would be like some last minute things you got to say to like our parents, just whatever, so they can go and just be more mindful. Mindful is the word of the night. Mindful and limit.
Well, my advice to our parents and our children in our community is to stay vigilant, create stronger social bonds, emotional and mental bonds with your children, so they don't have to rely on a inanimate object feeding them a bunch of things that they're not ready or able to understand at this point. Just stay on your children and just monitor what they do as much as you can. And don't let it ruin you. Don't use it as something, as a tool to raise your children. And that's what I'm saying a lot of people do. Don't use the internet or technology to raise your child. Sit down and still have those conversations. Still sit down and have dinner. You don't have to be a whole family to sit down and have dinner. If it's just you and your child or whatever the case may be, y'all sit down as a family and you eat dinner together. Turn the TV off. Talk. Okay? Mm-hmm. And you, being an adult, have to be the responsible one to initiate these things. So get off your phone, mom and dad, and spend some time with your children. That's my advice.
So agree. So Corey, what's your email address, or how can I get in touch with you after for additional questions, or whatever your social media sites you use?
I use Facebook right now. My email is cporter747@yahoo.com, and my direct contact is 404-931-0603. You can email me. You can text me any questions about child development, educational topics, anything concerning children and just behavior management.
Okay, cool. This has been so good. So definitely, like Corey, we got to do a part 2, sir. We got to do it really, really soon, and so we can really like get some more information out, because I do believe that as technology, I'm gonna use it to our advantage, and I'm gonna use it to our advantage to get more word out, and to okay. Like really, and so we're gonna use what they think. We're gonna use it again. We're gonna use it in a positive way. And so thank you again for this, like, coming on and being able to work the technology for us. And so, and I'll definitely like be in touch with you so we can do like a part 2.
Okay, I'm open. Just let me know and I'm ready whenever you are.
Cool. All right, SRN Television. That was Corey Porter and I, and we are talking about new age technology in our parenting, particularly in our Black communities, our people of color. And so, like, I really hope that this is some information you picked up on. You can contact me at Jaketra Bryant, JABryant1913 @gmail.com. Follow me on Twitter, Jaketra B. I now and then post a couple of motivational things and discuss more of like where you can find a link to my YouTube page, so Jaketra Bryant, or to Zoom. Definitely reach out to me via website, www.b3mentalperformances.com, for any additional questions. And I can be found on most social media sites as Jaketra Bryant. And so tune back in next week as we continue our series.
Get at me for beats, y'all.